morning. Oops, there we go. I spent a few days last week in Milwaukee at a coaches conference, and I heard lots of wonderful, wise people say lots of wonderful, wise things. It was in the final 10 minutes of the last session that I attended before I had to go back home that a colleague shared the words that I needed to hear the most. Protecting myself keeps me from being myself. So hear that again. Protecting myself keeps me from being myself. What a simple yet profound thought. We all need some sort of protection from the slings and arrows that life flings our way. But what barriers are we putting up that don't need to be there? We can tell ourselves that our armor is necessary for our very survival, and sometimes, if we find ourselves in traumatic situations, it can be. But for many of us, the survival that we're fighting for, the soft place in our heart that we're protecting, is our ego. It's our pride. It's our sense of identity. There's a book that Andy and I have on our bookshelf at home called Your God is Too Small by J.B. Phillips. And while I haven't read it, it's one of those books that feels like the title alone is so provocative as to be transformative. It's the phrase that came to mind when I heard those words, protecting myself keeps me from being myself. When we protect ourselves, we keep ourselves small. And that means that whatever we embody of the divine, whether it's God or the universe or the ground of all being, all of that becomes too small. It becomes limited, and it can't hold anything but the bare essentials. It's focused on trying to stay safe, avoiding risk or discomfort, and keeping things just as they are. We protect ourselves and make our divine spark small when we opt not to do what that spark is whispering or shouting at us to do. It's like we're assuming a no from the universe and preempting it so that we don't have to risk an actual no. And when we choose to say no on behalf of the universe, we keep ourselves from being ourselves, our full, messy, powerful, contradictory, glorious selves. When we let down our guard, even just a wee bit, we open to the possibility that we'll get hurt. And most often, that we that gets hurt is the invitation to be fully ourselves. Because what does letting our guard down look like? It looks like asking for help. It looks like receiving help. It looks like asking for what you want and need. It sounds like admitting, I don't know. It sounds like saying, you're welcome, instead of, it was nothing. It sounds like saying with humility, this is what I believe, and I'm open to hearing what you believe. It looks and feels like a God that's large enough and strong enough to absorb those slings and arrows to our ego, and to hold space for all that we dream about and all that we don't dare to dream. Our divine spark isn't fragile. It doesn't need protection. What it needs is to have gasoline poured on it so it can spread like a cleansing and generative wildfire through our hearts and then out into the world.